So this chapter that I'm going to read is called The Weak Sex. And it is actually chapter number 47 in the third volume. So, by the time you get to it, you would have had to have read the first volume and the second volume. But the information in this chapter is of such critical importance that you need to hear it and understand it. The weak sex. If you want to recognize everything that is wrong in the opinions, customs, and habits of these earth humans up till now, it will cost you no effort in seeking for long. For you need do nothing else but pick any expression and look closely at it fundamentally. It will be wrong because already the foundation of all the thinking of these earth humans is utterly twisted. However, the right thinking can never develop on a wrong foundation. Rather, the thinking corresponding to the foundation must likewise be wrong. Let us today take the generally widespread designation for earth womanhood as the weak sex. There will hardly be a human among the listeners who has not yet heard this expression. It is used lovingly as well as mockingly, good-naturedly and also ironically, but it is always taken up without reflection, as persistent, and it is maintained thoughtlessly, or indeed maintained without close examination. In reality, however, womanhood is just as strong as the manhood of earth, only in a different manner. In my lectures, I have often explained that the actual conception for womanhood and manhood proceeds from the kind of working in creation, and that therefore the kind of activity is the basis for the conception, and only then does it determine the form which allows humans on earth to be recognized as female or male. The difference manifests immediately as soon as the human spirit seed leaves its plane of origin. Those who incline to the active, that is, to coarse activity, take on male forms, whereas around those who want to work passively, meaning delicately, female forms take shape. They are two different but equally strong kinds of working. There is no weaker kind to be spoken of at all in this. These two kinds also give the explanation of the living cross itself, which is intrinsically perfect. The vertical beam of the cross is the positive, the active life. The horizontal beam of equal strength and equal length is the negative, thus the passive life. The living cross carries both within it. The cross of creation out of which and around which the entire creation develops says and shows the same. The vertical beam is the positive active working, and the horizontal beam is the negative passive working. The elders in the divine, who at the same time are guardians of the Holy Grail in the divine part of the Grail Castle, likewise manifest in their emitted radiation the equal armed cross. Now, just an aside, at the last meeting we had, where we talked about the Holy Grail truly exists. And all truth, all life, all manifestation of life comes through the Holy Grail. And all vibration that is spiritual vibrates in the positive or in the negative. So bear that in mind. But in the elders, it is not the living cross itself that constitutes their emitted radiation. Rather, it allows one to recognize that these elders are complete in their manner, and they bear the harmonious working of both the active and the passive, uncurtailed within themselves. In creation, however, the active is separated from the passive in its working. Each spirit bears either only the active or only the passive within, as is also repeated later with the spirit seeds. The spirit seeds work either passively or actively beside each other. The spirit seeds are us, we human beings. We are the smallest particles of living spirits that exist in creation. We are the lowest. The spirit seeds work either passively or actively beside each other, and yet constantly strive towards each other, since only in working together can both kinds achieve something complete. But complete only when both kinds work with equal strength and strive towards one goal, towards the light. To be able to do this, they do not need to live together. In earthly marriage, they do not need to be coarsely, materially close together at all. They do not even need to be acquainted with each other. Only the goal must be singular, towards the light. I am mentioning this expressly so that a wrong conclusion is not perhaps drawn from my lecture. For marriage and physical coarse material coming together are a matter altogether for itself, which is not necessarily connected with the striving towards the light. But if it is pure, it also does not prevent the striving towards the light. However, this lecture is directed primarily at the erroneous expression, the weaker sex. I must not go too far afield in this. Rather, I want to show the causes out of which the expression once arose and how it could constantly maintain itself. This is basically not so difficult. You can also easily recognize it if you want to take the trouble and keenly examine with a flashlight everything your fellow humans say. You know that all womanhood on earth has to keep awake the longing for the light. as the guardian of the flame of sustaining and upward leading longing for light. For this purpose, more delicate intuitive ability also develops in her, because in her urge towards more delicate activity, not as much of spiritual beingness detaches from her as it detaches from manhood, who is inclined to coarser activity. With this, every woman is receiver and mediator of radiations which manhood can no longer absorb. In this, womanhood stands half a step higher, turned more towards the light than every man, provided, naturally, that she stands aright and does not fritter away her abilities or block them herself. Due to this, the man intuitively senses that the woman is equipped with refinements which the man no longer bears within himself, since these refinements would otherwise hold him back from some coarse things which nevertheless have to be. The man unconsciously, intuitively senses this. He, of course, does not become exactly clear about it, or indeed only seldom does he become clear about it. But he intuitively senses a treasure in it which wants to be guarded. He feels urged to protect this invisible treasure in coarse matter, because in the earthly, he feels himself to be the coarse, materially stronger one. There are only few men who do not intuitively sense this, but such men are in any case brutalized and are not to be considered men in the true sense. The need to protect, which is unspoken, because it is only unconsciously sensed intuitively, has now over time brought the man to erroneously see womanhood as the weaker sex, which needs his protection. This designation, therefore, does not spring from a bad volition or a derogatory assessment, rather only from not knowing the true reason for his own intuitions. With the wrong way of thinking of earth humans and the progressively intensifying limitation of their capacity to comprehend things which lie outside of coarsest matter, with the progressively deadening apathy, a progressively lower interpretation of the designation of womanhood and manhood also naturally sets in here. In reality, the man is not the stronger sex. Rather, he is the coarser sex, meaning the more coarse material and therefore denser. However, womanhood is not the weaker sex, rather the more delicate, more porous, which has nothing to do with weaknesses. Due to his coarser activity, the man is more strongly solidified, which is no defect, since he needs it for carrying out his working in creation, so as to stand more firmly on earthly ground, and to be able to work more directly in and on the dense coarse matter. In this way, he is more firmly connected with the earth and inclines more towards the earth. The characteristics of the woman, however, go more upwards into what is finer, more delicate, less dense. In this, she complements, supports, and uplifts the human spiritual. Naturally, only if she stands at her post, which the Creator has assigned to her. Through retaining a quite specific kind of higher beingness in her body is not so strongly solidified because the coarse material body is permeated by this beingness which keeps it porous. However, this is neither a shortcoming nor a weakness. Rather, it is a necessity for absorption and transmission of radiations, the help of which the man cannot do without in his activity, but which in his coarse nature he is indeed unable to directly absorb. All this naturally also reaches in the simplest ways into the most coarse material things. Let us take a birth, for example. For this reason alone, a man could not at all offer the possibility for a soul to be able to approach him for the purpose of incarnation on earth, even if the organs for it were present in his body. He lacks the bridge for the soul, which is provided in the delicate beingness which womanhood still bears within herself, and which had to have detached itself from manhood in his active volition. Therefore, if the organs for childbirth were present, only the beginning of an earthly body can always develop, nothing more, because then the cooperation of the new soul is missing. The new soul cannot approach if the more delicate bridge of beingness is absent. Even with some women, the soul can sometimes approach, but then cannot maintain itself if this bridge has been damaged because the woman has assumed masculine characteristics which have supplanted the delicate gift of beingness given additionally to womanhood. The souls then detach themselves again before the earthly birth can occur. This all reaches much farther than you can imagine. Even the earthly health of your children is conditioned, hampered, or promoted through the uninterrupted seamlessness and purity of this higher bridge of beingness which the mother offers. The organs alone are not the only reason for childlessness, or the reason that many births do not proceed as they should normally. The main issue with the difficulties, illnesses, and weaknesses very often lies only in the faultiness of the bridge which the souls need for walking securely and powerfully on their earthly path. How often has a woman in foolish trifling or indomitable vanity adopted masculine characteristics, which must weaken or totally supplant the higher beingness part, which was given to her as a privilege. The consequences of this are so varied in the kind and form of their manifestations that humans often rack their brains over how some things are possible. But even worse than these coarse material happenings, which are still immediately visible as they develop, is the harm in the planes of fine coarse matter. Harm which has been perpetrated through such failure of womanhood, and which then manifests also on earth, even if it is only after a long time. You will be able to hear even more about it when I go over the subject at some point, and you will be horrified at the frivolous guilt of womanhood, which was even promoted by the men and intensified by the men into wanton deeds, because it was very welcome to them. For decades, you will still blush over it, because this period of an all-time low will continue to lie like a disgusting weight upon you in your memory. For the humankind of today, these are still mysterious processes from which I will yet lift the veil at a time when humans are matured to be able to grasp them. For I also work absolutely lawfully in this. Humankind can learn everything from me, but I always only open my mouth when through inner maturing they have become able to absorb it. This process works like the turning on of an opening connection or of an ignition, quite automatically. For this reason, humankind will also learn from me only as much as they are capable of processing, no more. However, you do not need to be always conscious of it, for I intuitively sense the inner awakening and stirring of the spirit, which is far different from the day consciousness of the intellect. And that for me is the trigger for my word. Therefore, I am apparently often already giving more today than you can really consciously absorb. But your spirit, to whom I speak, absorbs it without you knowing it in the earthly sense. So it appears as if I am already giving much today that is for a later time, whereas your spirit has already absorbed it. Only later does the day conscious understanding come to you. Perhaps only in decades, such that only then will you also know to apply it in the earthly with perfect understanding. As soon as you stride spiritually, energetically with me, I can reveal the entire creation to you. It always lies with you, you humans. Therefore, remain awake and active in spirit, so that I will not have to withhold anything from you. I give gladly and happily, but I am bound to the law, because I myself cannot do otherwise. I am allowed to give to you according to your capacity to receive and no more. Bear that in mind. Therefore, make use of the time that I am with you so that you miss nothing. Guard my word and make use of it. It can give you everything. We are lucky today that all this knowledge is being published in the form of a book. It is your individual responsibility to seek knowledge and to find it and to incorporate it into your daily life and so enhance your life and your growth. But aside from that, as a woman, you have an additional responsibility. And that additional responsibility is to creation itself. You've been given additional gifts, which the man does not have. And you have to exercise that additional gift. That's the reason you're a woman. And out of ignorance of these simple things about us as human spirits, we end up creating all kinds of entanglements for ourselves. If you can remind yourself every day, I am a woman. There is much that is riding on my womanhood. Not just my own spiritual well-being, but the well-being of others around me, and by extension, the well-being of the world. We're all lamenting the state of our world. And we point fingers at the men. It's the fault of the men, the fault of the men. But the truth is, yes, the men control events, material events. But outcomes are dependent on spiritual beginnings. And spiritually, the women are the directors of the outcome. So we need to rediscover our womanhood and concentrate on that. Concentrate on that. We don't need to go out there and try and turn the men around and change their way of thinking. We have to first change our way of thinking, our way of being. And as women, we have to do physical work, and we still have to maintain our spiritual connection. So we have additional gifts and we have additional responsibilities. Just like in the household, we have to do all the things we have to do in the household and still go out to our jobs. But everything we need to fulfill our spiritual responsibility has been given to us. We've been given additional gifts. We just have to exercise them. If you don't exercise something, you end up losing it. So we have to exercise it in every aspect of our being.
The question of the physical body versus the spiritual, the orientation. If I have a female soul, if that's the right word, does that female soul, is it always female? And then I have different incarnations of a male or a female body?
Correct. Okay. You know, what you are is something you chose from the very beginning. Think about life on earth as going in and out through a door, going from one room to the next. Let's say there are two rooms. You go through a door into the room and you go out again through that door from that room. What you are, who you are, remains the same. But if you enter the room and you put on a female dress, let's say, and then you leave the room, you have to leave the dress behind. The next time you go into that room, you go through that same door, you might put on a male dress. Depending on what your desires, let's use that word, desires are. That's what volition really means. You know, your desires dictate your activity. So that happens that people sometimes incarnate as a man and then the next time around as a woman. But the downside to that is that for many, their lives are very painful, and painful for people around them. But what they are inside, they know. They know what they are inside. And so people around them have to accept them for what they are inside. But we are living in a society that is very entrenched and rigid in our ideas and conceptions and have no understanding truly of spiritual law. And this is where reading this book, The Grail Message, will help you to understand how spirit operates, the laws that govern creation, because spirit is within creation and the laws of creation govern spirit. I've done a whole bunch of different workshops. Most of them are on YouTube, in which I've tried to explain the spiritual laws and the laws of incarnation and reincarnation. You can go to my YouTube channel and watch the videos. And if you read the book In the Light of Truth, gradually, slowly, you will begin to understand more and more about life and how our experiences are determined by our desires. It's what we desire that creates what's going to happen. So as women, if we desire to remain connected with the light, to remain feminine, because you cannot maintain that connection unless you remain feminine. Doesn't mean that men cannot connect with the light, but it means that women are more easily connected. And the women act as a link. The women are literally standing between the man and the light. They have to draw it and pass it on. And if you don't really get that through yourself thoroughly, then it will be difficult for you to truly contribute to changing the state of the world. And this is where we become truly guides of the destiny of everything around us and everything in our world. I woke up 3 nights ago, I think, and this prayer came to me. and I wrote it down. So let us together read this prayer. As we pray, let our prayers join with every other human spirit who's wishing and longing for a better world. And let's pray that we can become a contributor to this better world, regardless of what religion we were born into.
A woman's prayer. I ask for help that I may see, hear, and sense clearly with my spirit, that I may think, speak, and act purely from my spirit, that I may sense unease immediately if anything in me or around me ever strays from harmony with spirit, that I may always remain true, pure, and clear in my being, that I may always remain in connection with spirit wherever I may be in God's creation.
I thank you all for being here today. And I cannot emphasize enough to you how much benefit you will get from reading the book In the Light of Truth. It's not easy. It will rile you up. It will point out to you every wrong step that you have taken, every wrong step you're about to take, and it will point out to you what the outcome will be. And for many of us, myself especially, only when the outcome arrives, and then I remember, oh yeah, I took that wrong step. And just multiply that by 7 billion. And then you see how our whole world is full of wrong steps. And each individual has to start looking at where they put their foot when they put their foot down, which starts with first your way of thinking and then your way of being. So you can get this book online. You can order it from the publisher. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it in ebook. You can buy it in audiobook. The Grail Message. I've been reading it for 50-something years, and I am still reading it. So, thank you all.